Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of The Missing Link in Your Healing. This is the podcast where we aim to cut through the white noise to get to the truth of where healing lies. It is with much happiness that I welcome Peter McLaughlin, who I think we can only say Providence brought us together. So, Peter, I think I'm going to let you introduce yourself and what you do through your story. I just want to say what really attracted to me to your work and what you do and how you do it is you are a hypnotherapist, and a coach for the last 19 years. And you're dedicated to helping people uncover and transform through addressing root causes behind physical illness, being overweight, spiritual issues. Am I right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Yeah.
among many other things. There's, as you know, there's so many things that people suffer from, including things like grief.
Hmm.
And grief can be so intractable unless you go to the spiritual dimension. That's been my experience.
Oh, I love that because that's going to that spiritual dimension and the unconscious dimension and even the past life dimension, I think is a big missing link. And Loretta and I have not touched on that. So, yeah, I love the fact that you work with accessing the subconscious, or we call it the unconscious, to help people connect with their inner wisdom.
Hmm.
So you do get them, and you're going to tell us how, to the root of, yeah, where their healing for their grief lies or where their physical illness, and it's multifaceted, as I've heard you say in your podcast. It can be spiritual, past life. So I'm not going to blather on too much about that. I would love you to introduce yourself through telling your story and guiding us through what perspective you bring to helping people go through this process and how.
Sure. So I'll answer your question by coming back to that concept of root cause. It was 2003, 23 years ago. I was 41 years old. I was volunteering to be a firefighter in my town in Connecticut in the United States. And I had to take an extensive physical. And they said on the first day, "Wow, you're in great shape for your age. Come back and give blood." I gave blood, and they said, "We think you have Lyme disease and a rare form of leukemia." And that's really what started this journey. And in particular about that experience, I said, "Well, how long do I have to live?" And they said, "Maybe 10 years." I went to see the hematologist oncologist, and they said, "We don't know what causes this, and we don't know how to cure it." And for me, it was like, well, what am I doing here? This makes no sense. If I took my car to a mechanic because there was smoke coming out of the engine and they said, "Well, we don't know what causes this and we don't know how to cure it, but we can install a fan to blow away the smoke," I'd be, "Thank you very much. I'm going somewhere else." And I think that was, if not the beginning, it was certainly a major acceleration and a deep dive into thinking about just the nature of problems and coming to the conclusion that problems never occur in a vacuum. They don't just appear on their own out of nowhere. Even if we don't understand what the cause is, there's always an underlying cause. And just like with car mechanics, you can't solve the problem. You can only palliate it if you can't get to the root. And so that was the origin of taking a giant turn on my path, which thank God it happened, and also this adherence, this passion for finding what is underneath, what is in the bowels of the engine that is causing the smoke to come out of the hood of the car.
Talked about calling this episode Cracked Open Through Crisis because I myself started a 9-year journey 9 years ago through a very hectic cancer diagnosis on a healthy lifestyle. So, um, yes, I had no idea that even though I was eating healthy and exercising and doing all that, there was a whole lot of unknown symptoms or unrecognized symptoms on my part in the way I was living, how I was doing my life, and also a whole lot of unknown stuff, which was just waiting to explode, actually, but I had no idea. So I heard you say when you spoke to someone else that when you look back there were a whole lot of symptoms or signs in your life, even if they weren't physical symptoms, because I know you weren't physically sick, that when you look back were indicators that this was waiting to happen. And when I look back on my life, it's the same. And a lot of those things you mentioned, and I can look back on, are things people just take for granted, that's how they live. So could you share some of those things with us? I think it's very
Sure,
important
sure.
that people start looking not just at their pain in their liver, but at the way they're living and the potential messages in that we don't see as maybe exploding into problems because we've been so socially conditioned to live that way.
Yeah. I mean, when I look back, I almost laugh at the amount of stress. I got married, I guess, a little bit later than a lot of people. I got married when I was 34. We had our first child when I was 35, the next one when I was 37, and the next one when I was 39. I was commuting 4 days a week, 2 hours each way from north of New York City into New York City. 9/11 happened. I was working a block and a half away from ground zero where the buildings fell. The fifth day out of the week, I was building a security guard business. On the weekends, I was trying to restore a 100-year-old house. I was also taking care of, our three little kids. I was mowing the lawn. It was just too much. And I had never had that kind of intensity in my life at all from 0 to 34, except for little short periods of time. And it just pushed me over the edge. And I had this thing in my mind, which was, you can take it, you can take it, you can take it, you can take it, you can take it. Just do more, 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 more.
Mhm.
And so, my knees were aching, but I thought, well, that's just a sign of getting old. My back was, seizing up, and I just thought, well, I guess I'm just getting old. What is that? I don't know. Keep going. When I mowed the lawn, I'd get this itchy thing on my forehead, and I just thought, that's weird. Well, I don't know what that is, but I'm not going to think about it. I had anger. The horrible anger would come up, especially when the kids would do little things. And and then there was this one incident where I can't remember what precipitated it, but I was almost like a nervous breakdown. I remember looking at my wife and I started laughing, and then I started crying, and then I could see the look of concern in her face, and there was part of me, like the Eckhart Tolle concept of an observer watching the whole thing.
Wow.
But I was still inside of what I was watching. And then
Wow.
as she looked at me with this concerned look in her face, I started laughing again. And it was like, oh my God, why didn't I take these signs and take action? Why did it take a leukemia and a Lyme disease diagnosis? Obviously, I had some kind of major stubbornness going on, and I needed, my higher self was like, well, we're going to have to hit him with the spiritual 2x4.
I love that, a spiritual 2x4. Well done for being able to see that so quickly after your diagnosis. Some people don't see it even when they have been hit by that wrecking ball. So well done. And what did you do about it?
Well, the first thing, oh God, this was in the wake of 9/11. And I remember listening to a terrorism expert say, here's how you deal with the fear of terrorism. And it was like 3 steps. And one was you understand your enemy as well as you can. You investigate, you research, you study your opponent, your enemy. And then you make yourself stronger, you build yourself up, and then you take action. And I thought, well, I could do the same thing with leukemia. So instead of
Mm.
going away from it, which is very human, I've done it myself with all kinds of things in my life, I decided to go toward it. And I think that was a huge piece. I would love to be able to say that I just changed in an instant, but I didn't. It took me probably 3 years from diagnosis until all these pieces came together, and I went out to Santa Fe, New Mexico to learn how to be a hypnotherapist, which really transformed my life. And there was another incident that happened during that 3-year period that was like, you're not getting it, you're not getting it. Bam, another spiritual 2x4, which was almost drowning in Puerto Rico. You know, I, I
Wow.
I'm not a surfer. I had gotten up on a board once in Hawaii for like 3 seconds or something, and we got to Puerto Rico, and I thought I want to try surfing. So I rented a board. I walked out to this bay. There were no surfers out there, and the day before it had been filled with them, and I thought, well, that's not a good sign. And then I had the thought in my mind, Antoinette. The thought in my mind was, well, you've been diagnosed with leukemia. You're probably going to die anyway, so you might as well go out there. So I went out there, not knowing what I was doing, the only surfer out there. And after about a half an hour of getting beaten down, I thought, well, it's time to go in because I'm getting pretty tired. So I paddle in. I get about 20 yards from the shore. And then I made what was almost a fatal mistake. I thought there's big waves crashing at the shore. I don't want to get tangled up with the board because maybe it'll hit me in the head or something. And so I pushed the board into shore and I started swimming. And the wave pushed me underwater and I kept going. And I'm getting more and more tired and I'm making no progress at all. I'm probably in some kind of a rip current. I didn't have the presence of mind to swim parallel to the beach. And I thought, I don't know if I'm going to make it. And a man, this feels like divinely ordained somehow or orchestrated. A man that I didn't know. I had the smallest of interactions with him, like, good morning, how are you today kind of thing, had decided for some unknown reason, to walk a half a mile down the beach because I had drifted all of this way, just to check on me. What?
What?
Yeah.
No way.
And he yells out, "Are you okay?" And I yell back with all my gusto for the first time in my life, never said these words before, "I need help."
Wow.
And as soon as I shouted that, he brilliantly, in retrospect, ran to get the board. And as soon as he started running for the board, right after I shouted, "I need help," I'm not kidding you, it was like the hand of God picked me up, like a giant hand, picked me up by my ass and lifted me up and threw me all the way into the beach. And I landed with a crash on a rock.
Peter, you're not serious.
I'm serious. I swear to God. This is exactly what happened in exactly that sequence. Wow. It was almost immediately after I said, "I need help." I saw him turn to run to get the board, and then I felt myself lifted up as though a giant hand were on my posterior. And it threw me onto the beach. Bam.
You can't make this up, eh? You can't.
He came running down, and he grabbed my arm, and he pulled me the rest of the way up because I was shot. Physically shot. And obviously the lesson, at least as I took it, was you can't be an island unto yourself. You have to ask for help. And that was the same thing, now that I'm talking to you, that was going on when I was, working 4 days a week on Wall Street, and I was trying to start a security guard business, and I was trying to restore a house, and I was mowing the lawn, and I was helping take care of kids. That I wasn't saying, "I need help. I can't keep this pace up." And that's what got me into that fix. And so I had to have another thing.
So that's what you mean. You mean by spiritual 2x4. I just love that. So spiritual 2x4 in your eyes is a spiritual wake-up call. Like,
this has to hit you on the side of the head to get your attention because nothing else is working. Sending you a letter in the mail, knocking on your door, ringing the doorbell, waving to you from across the street, totally ignoring all of it until this crisis has to happen so that I like dumb say, "What? Oh, okay, I guess I need to pay attention.
I need help." Took that to make you
one diagnosis, but two. And not just that incident, but the almost drowning in Puerto Rico incident.
I heard someone on a podcast recently call it a spiritual wrecking ball, and it ties so well back into the title we chose, Cracked Open Through Crisis, because we see difficulties and hardship and suffering and illness and all these things as terrifying and against us, but actually, if they are as you view them, spiritual 2x4s, they're actually for us. Because it was illness that broke me open to so many things, like asking for help.
That's exactly right. And
stopping in my tracks, not overdoing everything, etc. Wow.
And this has also led me to, one of the more popular phrases that is out there these days is self-sabotage.
Yes.
And
I
I
know
say,
that one.
and I say, there's no such thing. I mean, that 99% of the time, what self-sabotage really is your subconscious mind is trying to protect you from a
Yes.
threat that no longer exists.
Yes.
And when we
Absolutely.
look at it as self-sabotage, we think, oh, there's a saboteur inside of me. How do you treat a saboteur? You hang them, you
Mm-hmm.
shoot them. But the saboteur isn't a saboteur at all. It's a part of you that is trying to protect you against a threat that it perceives that your conscious mind doesn't perceive.
That is an astounding perspective. Can we explore that a bit more? Because it took me 7 years into my 9 year journey to realize I was self-sabotaging, but what I did, because I didn't get proper help and I didn't know what you're saying now till I knew it, I was self-criticizing and self-flagellating on the back of the sabotage, and that interestingly created more sabotage because my poor unconscious, was just going, this is not safe. So can you speak us through a little bit more of that? And only when I met my self saboteur, when I met those parts of me that I was so badly trying to resist, even when I was deep into this path, because they were so hard to look at, how rough I was on myself and all kinds of things I had to really look in the face. And I only realized recently I have to meet that part of me, not judge it, not criticize it, and not even try and change it in the moment, but be fully self aware in that space. And that's a very big missing link. So, please talk us through a little bit more of that. What happens with this unconscious, and why does it do that? How does trauma
Yeah,
fit in? Yeah.
I will answer that, and I want to start my answer with an analogy. Anyone who's had children will have had this experience where you've got a child fairly young. It's time for them to go to bed. They go to bed, and then they get up 20 minutes later. I can't sleep. Or they get up 20 minutes later and say, there's something under my bed. And you could say they're ruining your life because you're not able to spend time with your husband or your wife, or you're not able to rest after a long day of work, or you're not able to accomplish something you wanted to accomplish. But their intention isn't to make your life worse.
Okay. Yes.
They have a problem, and they're trying to get your attention to help them with the problem. And it's the same with the subconscious mind. So the subconscious mind has no concept of time, zero. Everything to the subconscious is now. There is no past. There is no future. Everything is present. Everything is now, which incidentally also mirrors the quantum reality. Quantum physicists tell us there is no time. It's an illusion created by a planet that rotates on its own axis and it orbits the sun. That gives us the seasons and day and night.
Mm-hmm.
Well, this means that if something happened to you in the past, some kind of a trauma, and it wasn't healed, to the subconscious mind, that is a clear and present danger whenever it gets triggered. And so let's just say, let's take a very simple example, let's say a woman wants to lose weight. She's 50 pounds, 60 pounds overweight. Well, let's say that she was assaulted as a child, sexually assaulted. And her subconscious is like, this is a clear and present danger. We don't want this to happen. So we're going to create distance. We're going to create armor, a physical barrier between you and the world. And maybe we perceive that with this additional weight, the attackers won't be as attracted to you. So the person's now consciously doesn't realize this is still a clear and present danger because conscious mind isn't the subconscious, and starts to lose weight. And they get to a certain point and all of a sudden they in quotation marks, sabotage themselves by eating, for example. I don't know why I did this. It's because another part of you didn't feel safe with you dropping the weight.
Yes.
And now we're going to get mad at this part of you? No, it's not a saboteur. It's not trying to destroy your life. It's trying to protect you against a threat that no longer exists. Just like the child is terrified of something under the bed. There's nothing under the bed, but we don't scream at the child. We don't tell them, you deal with it. We don't hit them. We walk in there. We take them, take them in hand. We say, I'm here. I'm with you. You're safe. Let's look under the bed together.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, there's nothing under there. You're going to be okay. And if you still need me, I'm right here.
Wow. Yes.
That's what we do with our subconscious mind. We find out why, root cause. And then we resolve the root cause. We don't go to war with ourselves. President Lincoln said at the height of the Civil War, a house divided against itself cannot stand.
Wow.
If our conscious mind is divided against our subconscious mind, we are in a conflict that we cannot win.
So big.
Because the subconscious is way more powerful than our conscious mind is. It's like, I've been saying that it's like a human being riding on top of an elephant. And if you want to go right, and there's something over there that frightens the elephant, it's not going to go right, no matter how much you hit it. No matter how much you pull it, it's not going there. And if you somehow get it to go there, it's just going to leave immediately.
Wow, yeah.
You have to work with the elephant. You have to work with your subconscious mind.
Mm-hmm. So I really think a lot of people might know this intellectually, but I'd love you to talk us through how this really is a very big missing link, because I was socialized and spiritualized I knew my trauma, I'd done the forgiveness, and there was so much bypassing of it. My mother tried to abort me in utero with a knitting needle, and it wasn't her fault. She was young, all that stuff people tell you, but I never knew till I knew that I was born in fight and flight. I was terrified. I did a psilocybin 5-gram journey, and I re-experienced being in my mother's womb, and the amount of terror and the effect that it had on my physical body. I couldn't breathe. My heart was nearly hammering to the point of heart attack. That's how I felt in this journey. But so the thing is, people can know they've had trauma, but I'm not sure how much good help there is to take people to the awareness of that trauma and then through how to work with it. So I'd love you to talk us through the steps. I've seen that in some of your work, how you get people through the hypnosis, maybe because it could even be a past life. Am I right?
Yes.
And then I loved what you said. You don't just access the trauma through hypnosis and then it's all gone. We then have to tend our garden, you said. We have to do the daily work, pull the weeds. So can you talk us through that whole process you do? Because I've thought it was amazing.
Yes. And the key to my answer lies, and the key to the work and the way I do this lies in the fact that I went over a little while ago, which is the subconscious mind has no concept of time. So in essence, that works against us on the one hand. When you get triggered, it activates an old trauma, and that causes you to think certain things, feel certain things, behave in certain ways to produce a similar result. Well, we can also just turn that same coin over and use that same phenomenon to our advantage. The subconscious doesn't have any concept of time. Everything is now. So we can time travel in our minds.
Okay.
And the subconscious will recognize that as just as true, just as real as when it first happened. But this time, and there are many ways of doing this, but one of the ways of doing this is almost shamanic, whereby you at your present age, with my help and guidance and with your spirit guides, goes back in time, right? That's the conscious way of thinking about it, because to the subconscious there's no time, to rescue your traumatized younger version. Mm-hmm. It's almost like what I said before about, as a parent, going back upstairs with your little kid and looking under the bed together and saying to him, I'm here, I'm with you. You're not alone. Mm-hmm. And see, we look under the bed and there's nothing there. So it's safe for you to relax now. And this is a very simplified way of describing how the framework of how we do this, because in each circumstance, it's going to be different, a little bit different, but you get the generalized approach, the generalized thrust, right? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Because for some people, they were executed in a past lifetime,
Yes.
and they were judged by their whole community. For other people, they're dealing with karma. They're carrying something that they did,
Mm-hmm.
and everything in between. And
And
so,
Peter, yeah, it's multifaceted. Sorry to interrupt you because I did have that trauma and then the childhood impacting. But I also, it turned out years down the line, because I've had a lot of energy work and stuff, I was born with a generational curse. 4 generations back, I had past life stuff that needed to be cleared. So it's really so much, actually. It's so multifaceted. So if somebody can help us get to the depths of, so in hypnosis, can you uncover whether it was together with the guides? I love that. Do you uncover the source of the trauma, or that particular trauma, whether it was past life or?
yes, the answer is yes. And over this is my 20th year of doing this work. Over that time, I've consistently attempted for myself first to simplify everything, and by simplifying, finding faster ways to the answers and to the resolution. So the mechanism, what I've come to recognize is that your body, your physical body, is a feedback mechanism.
Yes.
The reason that you know you like someone is because you feel it in your body. The reason you know you're having a good time or a bad time or you're worried about something is because you feel it in your body. And your body is always communicating to you. We're so divorced from our body in modern
Yes.
Western culture that the only time we're aware of our body is at an extreme. When
Yes.
we're experiencing extreme pleasure, like sexual pleasure, or on a roller coaster or something like that, or in a movie with a lot of action, or we're crying,
Or
or
we're
we're
sick.
laughing, or we're terribly frightened. These are the times when we're aware of our body. And I'm convinced this is one of the reasons why you look at a multiplex now of theater. I never go anymore. There's nothing ever there. And it's like half of the movies are horror movies. And this is probably the only way that some people with an overstimulated nervous system can even feel like they're alive.
Wow, that's scary.
So your body is still speaking to you even when it's not screaming at you.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And I teach people how to use a pendulum. I have them hold a pendulum. What is a pendulum? A
Oh, wow.
pendulum is an amplifier of what your body's already telling you.
Wow.
And your subconscious, because it has no concept of time, it remembers everything. It's only your conscious mind that has a very limited awareness.
Mm-hmm.
So we can have the client hold the pendulum, establish for them how it moves for yes and how it moves for no. And then ask, are the migraine headaches you're suffering from the result of a trauma? Yes. Are they result of a trauma from earlier in your present life? I'm just giving you examples.
Mm-hmm.
No. Is it the result of a trauma you suffered in a past life? Yes. And we can narrow down exactly what is creating those migraines and what trauma it's related to and when that trauma occurred, and save a lot of time. Because it used to be that I would introduce a person to their spirit guide and have them ask the guide, take me by the hand, bring me back to when this trauma first began. You can still do that, but it's way faster to use the pendulum. And then you can also baseline it and say on a 0 to 10 scale, what is the acuity of that trauma? So when you were in utero and your mother tried to abort you, that would have a number associated with it of acuity. And once you've done the work on it, now that you have a baseline, you can go back and say, what is it now?
Oh, wow.
Because even psychotherapists who use EMDR, which is a great tool, they have no way other than asking the person, well, how does it feel now? And now we're asking their conscious mind, basically, to interpret what the body's feeling. And maybe they got it from a 10 to a 0, but maybe it went from a 10 to a 6, but it still feels better. That's great, but we're not done. We're not done at a 6. We're done at a 0, a 1, or a 2. But we don't know that unless we have a baseline, and then we come back after we've done work and we test it again. And what I have found is that if the number gets stuck somewhere, because sometimes people, it gets like if it's a 9 or a 10, it gets stuck at a 7 or an 8, or gets stuck at a 5. The reason it gets stuck is always shame or guilt. It's like part of that person feels like, I don't deserve to heal from this. And then you have to use hypnotic regression to clear the shame or the guilt. And you have to use, in my opinion, spiritual guidance to resolve the shame or the guilt. And you have to use whatever person or people they think that they harmed, and that's why they're holding the shame or the guilt.
Incredible. And then you take people through how to work with this in daily practice, in daily life. I saw in one of your podcasts or something, because it's no use just uncovering it. Am I right? It's like,
well, no. So in session, we would pinpoint it, and then we would work on that trauma to neutralize it in some of the mechanisms that I described before, and we would verify it with a pendulum. And this is where the myth of Achilles, the greatest of Greek warriors, comes in. That Achilles, even the greatest of Greek warriors, had what came to be known as an Achilles heel. And as long as he protected that heel with armor, he was invulnerable in battle. And what I've realized is that each one of us has a proverbial Achilles heel. There's part of us that is super sensitive. And I think it shows up as a kind of like an existential fear. And you can take that existential fear, for me, it has been abandonment. And you can take it from an 8, a 9, or a 10 down to maybe a 1 or a 2, which is huge. Like already it's massively improved your life. And it has allowed you to gain mastery and control where before you were helpless to this fear. Your body would just respond. And it still needs care and feeding. That part of you still needs, like Achilles, to sit down every day and put the armor on that part of you.
Brilliant. You're so good with analogies. Yes. So you help people to clear, let's say, the 8 out of 10, to retrieve the energy or go back to the memory, or once it's uncovered through hypnosis or whatever. And then you also work with people to guide them to tend their gardens, because I know I've worked with a lot of my unconscious stuff in different ways, and it was very long-winded. If I'd known you and who you were and what you did, I could have short-circuited it, I think. But it's still, I can see in my own life, it's still a day-by-day journey, and it's going to be for the rest of my life. I think that's our soul's journey, to tend the garden, to pull out the weeds, to be 100%.
Yes, and so what that means for me, and I'll use myself again as an example. What I thought was, okay, so what is essentially, how do you cure a fear of abandonment? And I can't use the word cure legally, right? So how do you heal fear of abandonment? So the way you heal the fear of abandonment is you resolve the root cause trauma that created it in the first place. And then the other side of that same coin is you give yourself ultimately what you feel like you would lose if you were abandoned. So for me, and I assume that for most adults, it would be the loss of love.
Mm-hmm.
It's recognizing, that love doesn't come from other people.
Mm-hmm.
Other people can be loving, but really what they're doing is triggering something inside of you. Just like another person can trigger a wound inside of you, another person can trigger love inside of you. And therefore, when they leave, they're not taking the love with them. They're maybe taking the triggering mechanism with them. And so
Wow.
if I can trigger this for myself every day, if I can fill that proverbial vessel inside of me with those feelings of love, let's say from God, then I can, on that deeper part of me, the subconscious part of me, it's harder for it to feel abandoned if I'm already giving it what it needs all the time. And to me, that is tending to the garden.
Yes.
To me, that is Achilles putting the armor on his heel because he knows that's the one part of him that's vulnerable.
So you take people through tools, wisdom tools or processes, or how they day to day can do that. Because I agree with you, but for me, no amount of prayer or accessing the trauma or any of that worked until I started meeting myself where I was at and started not judging myself and started, but it's a process, isn't it? It's taken me years and I still have to do it every single day, the inner work, but I have an ability now to feel joy and self-love no matter what's happening outside of me. That's what you're talking about. And that's what we all really need now because the world's going crazy. And everybody's having very strong, not everybody, many people are having very strong individual dark nights of the soul. You know, they're on the bathroom floor, whether it's with illness or bankruptcy or multiple things. So to cultivate that, what you're saying is the essence of our journey of healing. And then our bodies are as healthy as they can be. Am I right? And the mind is,
Yeah, and just think about fitness, like physical fitness, and how that involves not just some people go to the gym, some people go hiking, whatever you do to exercise your muscles, but you're also talking about food, you're talking about hydration, you're talking about exposure to the sun. You would be talking about adequate sleep. All of these things would be involved in physical fitness and maybe some other things too. And that's not a one and done thing. You don't just do all of those things and get yourself, oh, now I'm exactly the way I want to be. And now I can deprive myself of sleep. Now I can stop exercising. Now I can eat crap food. You know, like
that's the thing
it, it,
is.
it's the same with our spirit, with our emotions, with our connection to God. Like this is a daily practice. This isn't just a one and done,
Yes.
you know? And we have to do it. The trainer at the gym can guide you through how to do certain exercises. Maybe they can talk to you about nutrition, but you're the one that has to lift the weight.
Yes. And it takes commitment to do this inner work, just like
Commitment.
it does to train in a gym or run a marathon. Yeah.
Yeah, I can help people neutralize their old traumas. That's going to make a huge difference, just that. But I can't hold their hand every single day and say, okay, have you done your meditation today? Or have you pressed play with the headphones on the track that I created for self-love? You
We'll have
know?
to have another conversation, Peter, because I know you have to go now. But I
Yeah.
mean, we do go back into relapse, we pendulum swing.
Mhm.
Yeah, and one of the reasons we've started a community is to create a safe space. Only every 2 weeks we meet, but where we can be together to share and to maybe guide each other and walk each other home because it can be quite lonely. This, I can't thank you enough for showing up today. And there's so many, we could have spent hours, I think, talking. So
Well, I'm happy to come back if you'll have me at some future date.
I'd love to. And I will put all Peter's details in the show notes. If he's got an amazing YouTube channel, if you can't sleep, I've tried it out, and weight loss and relationship stuff, and many podcast episodes. Thank you, Peter. And we will see you again, I hope.
Okay, thank you so much,
Yes.
Antoinette.
Okay, bye.